John's careworn sandals sat close to the door. Over the years, he had traveled many miles in these shoes and seen many miraculous events. It reminded John of just how many miles he and the disciples had traveled with Jesus during his ministry on earth. His Lord was not one to remain in a place for too long. Jesus knew his time on earth was short, so he journeyed far and wide across the land of Palestine to proclaim the arrival of God's kingdom on earth. Yet, if Jesus had a base of operations, it was the sleepy village of Capernaum. It was a place near to John's heart, for he and his brother James had grown up there, fishing on the Sea of Galilee with their father. Peter had a home there as well, and he and his brother Andrew had cast their nets into the same waters. John could close his eyes and, to this day, still hear the sound of the waves lapping against the shore and smell the aroma of the fresh caught fish. The memory reminded him of the first time that Jesus and Peter met on the shores of that sea. His fellow fisherman was feeling a bit stuck on that day. Peter and his crew had just pulled an all-nighter in search of a catch that had managed to evade them. They employed all of their considerable skills, done everything they could, but still they had come up empty. So Peter was in no mood when Jesus, standing safe and dry on the shore, told him to put the boats out again and head for deep water. John had watched as Peter begrudgingly complied and was just as shocked when the resulting catch was so great that it threatened to burst the nets. He and Peter had learned a great lesson that day. God is with you when you're feeling stuck, spent, and all alone. He has resources beyond your imagination. You just have to be open to heeding His advice and taking action to push out into the deep sea. John states that Jesus' first miracle took place at a wedding in Cana. He and the rest of his disciples were again in that town when the time came for Jesus to perform his second sign. This time the miracle would involve the healing of a sick boy. The father of this boy was a man of high standing in Herod's court. He held a position of status and oversaw a house full of servants. But none of that mattered, for he had a son who was teetering on the brink of death. The man had heard of Jesus and thought he could help. There was just one problem, for, as we mentioned, Cana was about 18 miles away from Capernaum. It was a long way for the man to seek out an answer and hope for a response. It meant leaving his boy behind just in the hope that Jesus could do something. But this official had done everything he could for his boy. He had reached the end of his resources. So, as John tells us, when he heard that Jesus had come from Judea to Galilee, he went and begged Jesus to come to Capernaum to heal his son who was about to die. The man gave his son's fevered brow a kiss and his anxious wife a promise, and then headed northeast around the Sea of Galilee. And by the time he spotted Jesus in Cana, he was weary and worried. John tells us that he begged Jesus to come to Capernaum. I envision the man on his knees, perhaps on his face, imploring Jesus to return with him and heal his son. In John's words, the official pleaded, "Lord, please come now before my little boy dies." His appeal could hardly be more genuine. His direction could hardly have been clearer. Jesus, come now. Perhaps you can relate to this man. You've also offered up prayers when you were feeling stuck and at the end of your resources. And you found yourself in an arduous time of waiting for the answer. The road between supplication and celebration can be a long and wearisome trek. If you've been down this road, you know that uninvited companions like despair can often hitch a ride with you. They make you desperate for an answer. This was the father's state of mind when he found Christ. Fortunately, the answer from Jesus was quick in coming. Go back home. Your son will live. Oh, such good news. Or was it? Jesus had answered the prayer, but not exactly in the way the man requested. The nobleman wanted Jesus to return with him to Capernaum. He knew if Jesus made the trek, the miracle would take place. How could he be sure his son was healed if Jesus didn't go back with him? It was the moment of truth. Jesus was telling this man to do nothing less than push back out into the deep water. He was instructing the man to take him at his word and trust the prayer offered in Cana would be answered in Capernaum. Jesus was asking him to believe. And how would the man respond? Well, according to John, he took Jesus at his word and departed. The official chose to believe that Jesus would do what he said he would do, and he went on his way. Oh, that first step must have been difficult. And that second and third step, no easier. It had to be the longest trek of his life. It wasn't until he was met by the servants from his household that he received confirmation that the prayer had been answered. His son was well, fever gone, hope restored. The boy had become well at the exact moment that Jesus had said he would live. Jesus had worked a long-distance healing. But true to form, that was not the end of John's retelling of the story, for he states that the father and his entire household believed in Jesus. The miracle was not just in giving life to the boy, but also in the saving faith of the entire household. This was what Jesus desired. The physical healing of the boy was a temporary gift. The life-giving miracle was short-term. But the faith-giving miracle of Jesus to the family, that was eternal. As we look at the Father's example, we see how we should respond when we're also in a time of waiting for the not yet answered prayer, or maybe the not answered in the way I asked prayer. We take Jesus at his word. We believe that he is good. We trust that he is able to answer our request. We acknowledge he will do what is best in his own time. The man's prayer was granted in a manner greater than he requested. Yours will be as well. Perhaps the answer will come this side of heaven. Perhaps it awaits you on the other side. Either way, your part is to keep walking and believing in the God who is your ever-present help in trouble. Of course, this can be easier said than done. Sometimes the crises we face are so overwhelming that we can see no way out regardless of how many steps we take. We're mired in the mud of resentment, bogged down in debt, trapped in a dead-end career, up to our waist in the swamp of an unsolvable conflict. And we've been battling the same discouragement for a decade with no progress, waking up to the same hang-ups and habits as yesterday, truly stuck. Have you been there? If so, John has a third miracle for you. This time, the setting is Jerusalem, and Jesus and the disciples had traveled there to attend a Jewish festival. While he was there, he was drawn to a place known as the Pool of Bethesda. As John notes, next to that pool lay a multitude of sick people, blind and lame and paralyzed, waiting for the moving of the water. For an angel went down at a certain time into the pool and stirred up the water. Then whoever stepped first, after the stirring of the water, was made well of whatever disease he had. It was a miserable sight. Crowds of people, blind and lame and despondent, dejected, all awaiting their chance to be placed in the pool where healing waters bubbled up. And John must have marveled as he watched Jesus move right into the midst of that hurting mass of humanity. And Christ's eyes landed on a man who had been sick for 38 years. John notes that when Jesus saw the man, he asked, "Would you like to get well?" Now, to me, that seems like an odd question to pose to a sick person. I've been visiting the sick since 1977, and I have never once asked the person if he or she wanted to get well. So why would Jesus ask? Well, our only clue is that he knew the man had been ill for a long time. He was 2 years shy of 4 decades as an invalid. It was the duration that caused Jesus to pose the question. And look also at the man's response. "I can't, sir," the sick man said, "for I have no one to help me into the pool when the water stirred up. While I'm trying to get in, someone else always gets in ahead of me." Really? No one else will help you? Someone else always gets ahead of you? You've been here for 38 years and you couldn't inch your way down to the pool? I think Jesus' tone was firm when he asked the man, "Do you want to get well?" After all, his tin cup collected enough coins to buy the beans and bacon. Not a bad gig. Besides, healing would be disruptive. Getting well meant getting up, getting a job, getting to work. It meant getting on with life. Did the man really want to be healed? Or did he just prefer to stay stuck? It's a question that Jesus asks today. Do you want to get sober, solvent, educated, healthier, happier? Are you really ready to take that plunge out into the deep to get unstuck? Are you ready to take that long trek from Cana to Capernaum? If so, hear the words that Jesus said to this man by the pool. Stand up, pick up your mat, and walk. Notice the 3-step command. First, stand up. Do something. Write a letter, apply for the job, reach out to a counselor. Second, pick up your mat. Make a clean break with the past. Throw out the junky novels. Quit hanging out with the bad crowd. Put content filters on your computer. Third, walk. Lace up your boots and hit the trail. Assume something good is going to happen. Set your sights on a new destination and begin moving forward. Stop being stuck. Now, Jesus is serious about this command. When he later found the man in the temple, he told him, "See, you've been made well. Sin no more, lest a worse thing come upon you." To indulge in inertia is to sin. Jesus deemed stagnant do-nothingness a serious offense. So no more Bethesda for you. No more waking up and going to sleep in the same mess. No more waiting one more day. The God of the Bible is a God of forward motion. He's ready to write a new chapter in your biography, but he will demand that you take action to live out that new chapter. John had certainly seen Jesus write many new chapters in the story that made up his life. It still amazed him that God had chosen to use an uneducated fisherman like him to tell the greatest story the world had ever known. He had acted on Jesus' call. He had gotten up, picked up his nets, and walked into the new adventure that God had placed before him. And he had never looked back. Even now, he was still obediently walking down that trail of faith. And through it all, as he looked back on his days, he could see how God was always with him, continually opening doors in his timing and faithfully guiding him forward. He truly was never alone.